Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about my weirdest or most intense experience with psychedelics. Now, I haven't tripped in probably a decade, but when I was younger, I was very into psychedelics and, these are the weirdest stories. So, one day when I was in college, me and my friends wanted to do LSA, so the chemical that's in Hawaiian baby wood rose and morning glory seeds. And we wanted it to be a little bit more like actual LSD, so we thought to get the visual side of it, we added DXM to the mix, so like cough syrup. And because I had seen an episode of House that I actually believed as fact, whenever I would take DXM, I would also take a shot of alcohol, because according to this episode, which is completely false, it would prevent brain damage from DXM. Just so stupid that I even thought that. So anyway, so we were on LSA, DXM, we had drank a little bit, and then at this point I had just smoked a joint. And as I was sitting on the ground, I was suddenly in just a completely different area. And this woman extended her hand to me to help me get up off the ground. And she was like, we're gonna go somewhere. So as I was walking past, there were these 8 shimmering curtains, and I was like, what are these? And she was like, oh, those are the curtains of reality. And in my head, I just instantly knew that what she was talking about was that there were 8 different realities that you could be in, whether it was dream realities or anything else. There was 8 different places that you could go, 8 different sets of reality. And we walked past those, and we got to this door, and she said, beyond this door is the playground. You'll be able to do whatever you want with no consequences, and you'll be able to control absolutely everything there. The only catch is you won't be able to remember any of it. So obviously I just remember going through the door, and I don't remember anything else that happened. So I don't know if that's when my hallucinations stopped and I came back to, or if I had some crazy adventure. I've got no idea. Another time that was pretty crazy was when I was on a ski trip and I had brought along some DMT. So instead of having it, traditionally with a pretty much a meth pipe that you would typically use to smoke DMT, I had sprinkled it throughout a joint, and I was on a ski lift with 2 people I did not know. So I asked them, I was just like, hey, I have this joint that has DMT in it. Do you mind if I smoke this while we're going up? And also, would you like some? And they said, no, we're good. We're not going to have any, but, you do you. You can absolutely smoke that. So I lit it up. And as we're going up, he starts telling me a story. And a couple puffs in, I just say, listen, man, I'm going to have to cut you off right there. I can't comprehend anything that you're saying to me right now. And he just goes, classic. I'll always remember that little moment. But anyway, when I get off the lift, I'm tripping pretty hard, obviously, and I go immediately down to the the Alpine Park. And I then go off 3 jumps, the biggest jumps that they had. And the first, like, I didn't know the distances at the time, but I went back and asked the people that were like running the park later on. And apparently the first jump I did was a 20-foot gap. The second jump I did was a 40-foot gap. And the last jump was a 60-foot gap. And flying over 60 feet while tripping on DMT is probably one of the craziest experiences of my entire life. Like, I can't imagine a feeling closer to actually being able to fly than that experience that I had. Now, obviously, I do not recommend that anybody do, well, really any of the things that I talk about in this video, but that is definitely one of the craziest experiences of my life. And the next one is when I was living back in DC, where PCP was pretty prevalent at the time. And I had smoked just a little bit in the past, but I had never smoked like a full trip's worth. So my friend said, "Oh, do you still want to try Dipper? You know, if so, talk to that girl over there." So, you know, I had talked to my friends and they're like, just like, "Oh yeah, you know, you just pay her and then both of them will go, you know, smoke it with you because she's going to give you like a fair amount." And I had this cigarette that I had half filled with weed, and she pulls out the vial, she makes the Dipper. And I say, "Okay, I'm going to go smoke this now in the woods." And I thought that they were following me, but when I got to that spot in the woods, I looked around and nobody else was there with me. And I just thought, oh, well, I'll just start it without them. And, they'll probably be here in a second. And I have no idea what happened up to the point that my friend ends up finding me face down in a creek, like with half of my face like submerged in the water, and she's yelling my name, and I sit up and I look around, and if she's where you are, I'm just looking around and I'm like, and I eventually lock onto her, and she's like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need anything?" And I was like, I am a person. And she says, like, "Okay, I'm glad, but do you need something? Do you want some bread or anything like that?" And I say, I eat bread. Like, everything that I was experiencing, it was like for the very first time. Like, my brain had like completely reset. PCP is such an awful drug that nobody should ever take in their life. I never took it again after this experience. But yeah, just my entire brain reset. I could have easily died in that creek. And that would have been just an awful, pointless way to go. So don't ever try that. Another time was smoking salvia. Now, there's no good reason to smoke salvia, ever. Like, a lot of people say, oh, it's great because then you can, like, have a nice crazy trip and then be back on. No, it's just, you're just throwing your brain in a blender and just scrambling it, and hopefully it comes back together all right. But if you ever want to do a psychedelic that is a very short acting one because you're scared of having a longer trip, DMT has all of the upsides that salvia has, except it actually has like a good euphoric spiritual experience to it, whereas salvia has none of those things. So I smoke my bowl of salvia, and my entire vision doubles over like 3 times. Like it wasn't just that I was like seeing triple, that like things had like faded apart. It was like watching like a film strip where I still saw everything I normally could, but stacked up on top of each other. And I obviously could not comprehend anything at the time. So I was in my friend's dorm room, and I stand up and I'm just like, I gotta get out of here. So I start walking towards the door, and he stands up and he's just like, hey, are you sure you want to leave? And he was just like so like calm and like, you know, just such good energy. I was just like, I don't want to leave. So I sit back down, and one of his other friends said, hey, do you want jam on your toast? And my brain was just like, what is jam? What is toast? And why or why not would I want jam upon it? That one wasn't really worth telling. I don't know if any of these are really worth telling, but anyway, the next, what was the other one that I was gonna say? Now this one is really, really intense. It's not a pleasant experience whatsoever, but at this point in my life, it provided something really, really meaningful to me. I recently lost a friend. They were the best friend I had ever had in my life, and I was just really desperate to be able to see them again and talk to them again. So there is a drug called Datura. It's also called Jimson weed, it's got a million names to it, but it is a deliriant, and it works pretty much the way that LSD works in movies. Like, you're actually seeing people that aren't there. You're smoking cigarettes that don't exist. Like, it's like you're dreaming on top of reality. Like, you have no concept of what is actually going on when you do this substance. And it is not euphoric. It is not, something just to do for fun, but it is traditionally used for contacting the dead. So I smoked some, and, it's not a fun experience, but I was able to visit with my best friend, and I was so glad that I did it. It was just so nice to be able to really felt like I was actually talking to them. Like, it wasn't it felt so real that even to this day, I feel like it was real. I feel like I somehow found a way to actually contact them in the afterlife. And although, again, I wouldn't really recommend anybody going into that experience because it's very scary. It is not something to go into lightly. But it was the most special experience I've had on any substance at any point in my life. So that's it. Those are my craziest stories from back when I used to do psychedelics. Have a nice night.